So today we're going to talk about keeping dementia out of your brain as best as you can. This is aimed at anyone from in their 20s, 30s, 40s, right up to the 50s, even beyond if you want to keep out or try a little bit. But mostly for people to have the most effect, you need to start some of these things a bit early, like maybe in your 20s or 30s, something like that. So students really, just pay attention, basically, because you can check all the facts that I'm just about to tell you anyway. Lifestyle changes you can decide to make or choose to make if you want in your life, each one of which will in a small way or a bigger way sometimes lessen your chances of getting dementia in later life. These obviously are quite important, and just to give you a heads up, I scored very, very badly on all of them. So I met evidence, if you like, sat here talking to you right in front of you that these things do matter, and they are actually, there is proof there, living proof inside my flipping head. So I'm going to try and tell you some things that you can change, you can alter, you can adjust, tweak a little bit in your life, lifestyle changes you can make that will help swerve your brain away from allowing Mr. Dementia to just have a free entry through the front door of your brain in later years. And it could be as early as the 40s or 50s even. I mean, I was diagnosed when I was 19, not 19, I was diagnosed when I was 59. So there we go. But I think it's fair to say that there are some things you cannot change or alter or tweak in any way, and those, unfortunately, some of them do have a bearing on your risks or chances of getting dementia. So I'll go through them one at a time very briefly, because I only got 2 minutes on this first bit before I start going into the individual things. Well, the first one clearly is your age. When you're born, you've got very little chance, minimal chance even, of developing dementia. But if you're in your 90s, then 1 in 3 of you, people in their 90s, and I'm not far away from that group either, 1 in 3 will, unfortunately, at the moment, this time, we're in 2020, what year are we in? 2027, 6, maybe? Anyway, what was I saying? So 1 in every 3 people in their 90s their brain will succumb to some type of MCI or dementia, unfortunately. That's just a fact at the moment. You can read it anywhere, Google it, whatever. So that's a fact. So age, we can't do anything about, can't go back in time. And despite what L'Oreal and all the other companies tell you about their creams and things like that, wrinkle stuff and whatever, or putting or shit on your face, nothing, beetle dung or whatever, nothing is going to make you go back in time. You cannot take years off of your whatever's on your birth certificate. I don't know what the expiry date is on my own birth certificate, but hey, that's in someone else's hands, not mine. Genes, you can't change your genes, and don't say, yeah, I got a blue pair and a black pair. The genes, which is like the Lego bricks of our actual body, like, what makes up each one of our cells, if you like. I think the Cronus, the other long thing, is part of your DNA, but your genes are actually what make you. And you can't change that, otherwise you wouldn't be you. You'd be some other person, You don't want to be some other person, do you? You want to be you. I know you can't make a human being out of Lego, but it's a facsimile, if you like. Yeah, but I'm sure those people in the Netherlands or wherever Legos, the plastic bricks is made, like somebody's working on some sort of organic Lego brick somewhere to make it some sort of robot human thing. Anyway, that's a different story. Sex. Thought that'd get your attention. No, your gender. I'm talking about in that respect. Like, yes, you can change, you can transform, and I've thought about it myself to get those extra few years, because women do live longer than men. But anyway, but joking aside, you cannot change your gender at birth, and this is what we have to talk about scientifically. I'm up for people being what they want to be in their life, because they only got one life, just to be what you want to be, like, what you need to be. But when you're born, if you're fortunate enough to be born with more female genes than male genes, then you're less likely to develop dementia. So lucky you. Anyways, but that's a fact. So men have more chance of getting dementia than women, and it's not the reason why I've got it and my wife hasn't. And whatever gender you are or change to or whatever, you're all welcome in my house anyway. And the other thing that we have to talk about is ethnicity, and that's not just maybe the colour of your skin, and then despite some people like Michael Jackson, for instance, trying to change himself from black to white, that wouldn't have affected him having more chance of getting dementia, because unfortunately, if you do have the black skin, then your chances of getting dementia are very tinily slightly more than if you had white skin. No matter how much you try and change from one to the other, but you certainly wouldn't want to change your colour of your skin just for that reason. You might for other reasons, but not for that reason. So genetically and proven with data that black people are more likely to get dementia than white people. Fact. So I just spent the last 2 minutes talking into the camera and recording the first episode for you about alcohol consumption, and I thought it was quite good. It was all in focus. Unfortunately, there was no sound. There's a little tiny lead on the top of the camera there. Didn't have it set in. Oh dear. Anyway, I'm glad I went back and stopped it and then re-recorded this bit so that I didn't do the whole complete series with no sound. That would have been good, wouldn't it? Anyway, what was I talking about? So the keen people out there who's watching these videos with intense scrutiny will notice that I've had a shave for you. I put the first lot of the videos in on a Mac and for the intro for this, and I thought, oh my god, that looks a bit scruffy. Anyway, the content was there, so you don't need to look at the screen, just listen. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, but for those who watch and like to see my pretty face, then I'm no longer the Clint Eastwood, guy walking about on a stubbly horse anymore. I've had a nice bit of a clean shave. And I'll just add here that hygiene, self-hygiene, is unfortunately one of the side effects of when people get dementia. They forget to wash themselves or clean themselves, clean their teeth and brush their hair, and well, not that I can brush my hair, of course. Well, I could, but I got hair under my arms, but nowhere else. Oh, that was a bit of a giveaway, wasn't it? Right, back to the video. So, personal hygiene, yeah, it's one of the things that sometimes is the dementia steals away from us. So occasionally I'll walk past my wife and she'll say, "Oh, have you had a shower today in the last couple of days, John?" And I'll say, so if I'm walking towards her, she'll open her bathroom door and kick me in, say, "You're not coming out unless you shower." No, it's not quite that bad, but it is a thing, is a known thing, like personal hygiene with people. So if you see somebody on forgetfulness and they've got or stubble and they stink to high heaven, chances are they might have dementia as well, and that's the cause of it. But also the other flip side of it is if you've been with somebody all your life, like particularly a man, because we smell more than women, most women smell really nice, and he starts ponging a bit, it might be that if he has not got dementia, it could be that maybe, you know, get tested, like, you know, just for that, because it's not a normal thing, you know. Right, okay, anyway, I'm sidetracked again. Another thing, another quick thing about dementia is that you get sidetracked with things. Seagull just crapped on our roof up there. Go away. Yeah. Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, so episode 1 now I'm going to talk about is called alcohol consumption. See, I've done my homework, got all my notes and checked all the facts and things like that. So what I'll do is at the beginning of each section or episode, if you like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a big screen across for 4 seconds or so that if you're flipping backwards and forwards to it, you'll clearly see which bit you want, like, you know, whether it's to do with eyesight loss or alcohol consumption, smoking, all those horrible things that I'm going to be talking about. But I'm going to be explaining to you the reasons why those things are bad for or good for your high risk of getting dementia, if you like. So yeah, look out for that. So I'll see you in a minute after the big screen comes across, which should read alcohol consumption. There we go, got that right then, didn't I? So alcohol consumption, what we're talking about here in relation to dementia is heavy, long-term drinking over a long period in people's lives. So me, for instance, in my teens and early 20s, probably into my 30s even, I drank heavily. Whenever I could get some money from somewhere, then I would buy alcohol with it. Like, you know, whether it was when I went to school, even I arrived in school drunk quite a few mornings. I can recall. It was all to do with some traumas I had when I was a child, family breakup and abuse and all other things, like, you know. But so that was the reason behind it. But anyway, regardless of the reason, I did that, and so I'm pretty certain I've added myself a point for that. 1 point in the list of 14. So one out of 14 for me at the moment. But how does it affect dementia? Well, drinking in high quantities over a long period does affect the white matter in the brain. So not the actual cells themselves or the memories and the things is already there, but it does interfere with the tracking of them, like the interconnecting trackways that go through the white matter to get from one part of the brain to the other part of the brain. So, for instance, your walking ability, your feet, for instance, is in one part of your brain, and your ideal thinking to move and walk with them is in another part of the brain. Well, if you drink a lot of alcohol, it interferes with that. That's why people stagger about when they've drunk too much, like, you know. But those are always temporary. If you just drink too much once and you get drunk, getting slightly drunk is almost like what dementia is all the time, like, you know, it's with us all the time like that. There's a part of being drunk is similar to having dementia. That's not to say that it's a nice thing having dementia and you just feel like you've had a couple of bottles of wine or something every day. No, it's not like that at all. But I think it's the interference of your thoughts and the processing of your brain is similar in some ways, like, you know. So long-term alcohol abuse or drinking, like, you know, does have a massive impact on your risks of developing dementia. Don't forget, once you've developed dementia, you can't get rid of it, okay? So it's a one-off thing, like, you know. So I'm here to advise you as best I can, using myself as an example, a poor example of what you might consider not doing or following, in the hope that some of you might decide to relook at your, or reconsider your lifestyle choices and think, oh, well, I actually don't want dementia. How can I lessen my risks of it? This is one way, you know. Don't do all that long-term heavy drinking, like, you know. Going out for an odd drink, as long as you're under the, bizarrely, it's the same number as well. So the 14 units of alcohol per week is okay, like, you know. And although minusculely, probably having a down effect on your risks of, an up effect on your, getting your risks of dementia in later life, it's not huge. Whereas if you do it every day, that does have a huge parabolic, bigger effect on whether you're going to get dementia or not. And dementia in your later years, like 50s, 60s and 70s and 80s, like, you know, I mean, I was diagnosed at age 19, not 19, I was 59 when I finally got diagnosed, so I probably had it a few years before that in me, undiagnosed, like, you know, and that's the dangerous part, like, you know. It is also the depressing part, if you like, because there's something going on, you don't know what the hell it is, like, you know. Anyway, so that's alcohol and why it's a thing that you can adjust through your life early on if you want to. So we're now looking at low physical activity. Low physical activity. I don't know why I'm shouting into the camera, because the flipping microphone's right just here on my throat. So I'll read exactly what it says. It says, a lack of physical exercise is one of the main factors for which the evidence is strong enough to show that it increases a person's risk of developing dementia. And studies looking at the effect of exercise in middle-aged or older, i.e. me, adults, have reported improvements in thinking and memory and reduced rates of dementia. So there you go, from the horse's mouth. But you want to know what the odds are then, isn't it? What having the difference between just lolloping about doing sod all most of your life, how does that affect your dementia? And if you was to get up and walk up and down the pavement or something outside, or even just up and down the stairs a couple of times per day, which you have to do anyway if you've got a bedroom upstairs, I guess. What difference that makes to your risks factor of getting dementia in later years? Well, here you go, 20% less chance if you do that. And then we can also, so it's exercise, if you exercise most of your days, or whenever you can, actually do exercise rather than just sit on a screen or play on your Switch or whatever it is you do all day, like, you know, then exercising gives you a fifth better chance of avoiding dementia. And there was a study done, or some studies done, that looked at older people, people my age, I suppose, 50s, 60s, 70s even, that sort of age. And the bottom 10% of active people in my age range were twice as likely to get dementia as the top 10% who did exercise. So 10% of us oldies do exercise. They're twice the risk less of getting dementia than me at the bottom. There is another one which I quite liked, which is unfortunately for us guys, that even doing the washing up has been proved to have some effect on the hoovering, for instance, washing up, wiping down the shelves and dusting, I think they call it, something like that. If you do those things, that also does actually reduce your risk of getting dementia, bizarrely. So guys, if you do want dementia, do the washing up every day. Okay girls, that's a house point for you as well, brownie points for the guys. So, sorry, blood pressure. So at the moment, I think that my dementia is causing my wife's blood pressure to get worse. Sorry, I had to put that in. No, seriousness aside, no, the joking aside, I'll start again. So, fact. High blood pressure increases the risk of somebody getting dementia in later life. And the studies so far have concentrated on people in their 40s and anyone between 40 and 65 years old, which is the cut-off point for young onset dementia, calling. They've done studies associating or linking high blood pressure to vascular dementia. See, high blood pressure is to do with your arteries, just blood go around your system and things like that. High blood pressure makes your blood vessels, the actual walls of the blood vessels go thicker and stiffer. Schoolboy thought just entered my head then, sorry. And it's called arterial. I'll spell it and print it up on the screen. All right, I can't say it because it's not there. So if you've got like high blood pressure and you're a bit overweight, so you've got extra fatty things going around in your blood cells and things like that, they also block stuff. So I mean, basically your heart's going like 10 to the bloody dozen, isn't it, to get there. And what you have to remember is that the blood vessels inside your brain are minutely smaller than the ones going, like, for instance, up and down your careful what I say, your arm, like, for instance, like, and so what the potential for high blood pressure is to cause bleeds in the brain, when one of these tiny micro blood vessels pops, like, or decides to not want to be where it is anymore, and lets like the blood out into your brain. So that's a bleed. So that's called a stroke or an IRS or something. So can't remember. It's an itchy attack, something like that. ITA, is it? Something, yeah. Yeah, we're recording, right? Okay. So and this can accumulate over many years. So it doesn't mean to say that you have some load of fatty cheese one night, suddenly that you're going to get dementia the next day. Like, that it doesn't work that quick, like, but it does work over like many years or decades even. So if you eat blue cheese and fatty stuff all through your days, like, apart from all the cholesterol building up and that, which we'll cover in a minute, anything to give you high blood pressure, which is upset, trauma, traumatic emotional issues sometimes cause high blood pressure. So your lifestyle, just chill out, like, basically, that helps you not get dementia. So those sort of things. I think we sort of got there in the end. I think you get the general gist of it, So low blood pressure, low risk of dementia. High blood pressure, high risk of dementia later on. See you in the next one. So this is the fourth one, I think. Yeah, number 4, smoking. This isn't to tell anyone to stop smoking. Anyone who smokes knows now how bad it is for you, and I am also very acutely aware of how hard it is not to smoke if you have smoked for quite a while, because I've gone through all that. So again, I'm not here to discuss means or ways of stopping smoking or anything. It's bad for you, but this is an extra indicator maybe that a couple of things about smoking, interesting facts, might help you just fall over the other side of the fence into the non-smoking garden. It might just prick your conscience, even if you've got children, that sort of thing. So let's get started. So what we're talking about in the cigarette smoke is not necessarily the nicotine or anything like that, but the actual toxins that are in the smoke itself. And so what they do is instantly you pull on the cigarette, it instantly inflames your cells in your blood through your lungs and things like that. So it generally puts stress virtually everywhere around your body, and you can feel it virtually instantly. That's why people get this kick from it. Some people think of it as a relaxing thing. Some people, if they're stressed, I'll give them a cigarette. Like the first drag of the cigarette, you think, oh, great, there's this relaxing thing on it. But it's actually, what it's doing is stressing all your blood cells, and they go into a sort of a shock, like they don't know what to do, like, and that's where you get that euphoria sort of initial feeling of everything's cool and calm, like. Smoking mainly has been associated with Alzheimer's disease, which is factually, I suppose, the worst dementia you can get out of a bad lot anyway. So I don't have Alzheimer's, even though I smoked, so it's quite odd I got the other one, which isn't that. But because I've got one dementia, type of dementia, frontotemporal, this one up here, dementia, that's the one I've got. But because I've got that, it doesn't immune me from getting Alzheimer's. And it's like I'm more risk of getting Alzheimer's than someone else who hasn't smoked in their past years, because I smoked for about 24, 25 years, quite a lot, from when I was like 12, 13, but don't tell mum. That. And there is also still a classified and dated risk of getting dementia through passive smoking. So if you're in like a room, like I go back to the olden days, a lot of youngsters now don't realise that you could smoke in a cinema, you could smoke on the bus, you could smoke in the back of a taxi, you could, teachers smoked in school, nurses used to go into a little room and smoke after they'd seen their patient and before they saw their next patient, like, stinking and reeking of tobacco smoke. That was the norm. We didn't understand or know that back in the 50s and 60s exactly how bad the effects of it, like, and we're appreciating how bad it was now through all the cancers that's been found, and also a lot of dementias that are coming to light now in people that used to smoke, including myself, like, and after I stopped smoking, I was still inhaling smoke through being in places where I was breathing in all the passive smoke. Like, the chemicals are still there, the toxins are still there in the smoke, because passive smoking, you're breathing in the smoke from the cigarette that hasn't gone into the smoker's lungs. You're breathing it instead of him, like, or her, whatever. So that's why passive smoking is just as bad almost as actual smoking. So you might think, how does vision loss affect your risks of getting dementia in later life? Well, it's along the similar lines to lack of hearing, I suppose. And is that you can't see, or your blurred vision, so your brain is overworking. So apart from actual blindness, losing your sight has all sorts of other health issues as well. Trips and falling over, social isolation as well adds to it, and all the things that it goes to are also added things, as you've heard on this series, of raising your risks of getting dementia. And there has been studies in research that proves that there is a connection between unresolved sight loss, vision loss, and cognitive decline, and potentially therefore then dementia. So the main dementia that you're likely to get if you've got this obviously means that in a pure factual way, blind people are more likely to get dementia than sighted people. So basically a simple lack of stimulation to the visual cortex in the brain leads to atrophy, that part of the brain dying. And it seems to be a two-way thing that helps in the development of Alzheimer's in a brain that's visually unstimulated, but also if you were unfortunately to get Alzheimer's, because the Alzheimer's is affecting the visual cortex as well, you're likely to have visual issues if you have Alzheimer's as your dementia, like for instance. But these are only warning signs really in relevance to dementia if they're left untreated. So again, for you youngsters, another warning: if you find it difficult to concentrate on letters and words, or figures, pictures, videos, even on your phone, things like that, potentially looking at a piece of glass for hours and hours on end, flicking your thumbs all over it or whatever, does have a detrimental effect on your risks of avoiding dementia in later life. That's just a plain fact, sorry guys. However, if it is treated, like if you've got cataracts for instance or something, get them sorted as soon as possible. Always make sure that you go and visit your sitting on the Specsavers or whatever, other optical people are available, and get yourself sorted, because that will obviously, the sooner visual issues are sorted, that does actually immediately start lowering your risk of getting dementia in later days. But again, all down to choice. I can only give you the options and tell you the science behind why not being able to see properly potentially could cause you to have dementia in later years. So I'm going to give myself 1 point for this, due to the fact that most of my life I had uncorrected vision loss, i.e. blurring. I've been colourblind since I was a child, only specific colours like reds and browns, and some shades of green I get mixed, they all blend together like with me, yeah, so I didn't get my first pair of glasses till I was way into my 50s, I don't think. Again, all or nothing with me, like, I can still see down the road, so I'll just keep driving, I cannot bother. But all the things I think I look back on now and I've missed in detail, like, yeah, shame. But anyway, I've got it sorted out now, but maybe too late for me, I don't know. Did it have an effect on my dementia? I don't know for sure, but the data tells me that yes, is my lack of going to the not the dentist, the eye people, did have an effect on me getting dementia. So I hope that's been interesting to you, especially people that are maybe struggling with some eyesight issues, or if you do eventually develop some eyesight issues, just a warning sign is to just get them sorted as soon as possible. And all these things added up to reduce your risks of getting a dementia. Thank you. This one's on vision loss, oddly, and obviously clearly yesterday I didn't see that I'd missed out completely the video 5 talk paperwork on vision loss and how that affects dementia. So I'm doing it this morning before I go to church. Diabetes. Next on diabetes. It is a confirmed risk for developing dementia in later life. So the brain cells in a person with diabetes, over time the brain cells become immune to the effects of the insulin, which then leads to an abnormal buildup of the amyloid plaques and tau that build up in the brain naturally, but they over build up. And it's the build-up of amyloid plaques and taus which is one of the main contributors of Alzheimer's, or contributors to Alzheimer's disease, type of dementia. That's both types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. And the thing is that if you've got diabetes, you're likely to have, or you could have, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and some form of obesity. All those things now compounded with diabetes unfortunately does add to your risks of developing dementia. It's not a guarantee, it just adds to your odds of developing it in your brain. And the way round it, I'm guessing, or the only thing you can do really is just to keep having a balanced diet, so have a balanced diet before you get diabetes. That's a positive plus for anyone, teens right up to their age 70, anyway, regardless of whether you've got obesity or diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, any of those things, always a balanced diet is going to help steer you away from those, any one of those. And if you have a multitude of those, then obviously a balanced diet is going to help lessen your chances of those adding to the risk of you getting dementia. So just look at that really, I suppose. When I was at college, I remember passing out one evening and falling down these stone stairs, and I sort of woke up in the hospital, and the doctors that was there said, well, we haven't found anything particularly wrong with you other than your blood sugar levels are really high. I said, well, that ain't surprising, because we used to just spend all day drinking coffee and eating Mars bars, that's literally because we were studying so much to try and get all the plant names right, and well, it was a horticultural college I was at, and then we just didn't sleep or eat properly or anything, hardly ever went down for breakfast. We just had literally cakes and Mars bars, chocolate bars and coffee. That's what kept us going, and as a consequence of that, obviously my sugar levels got to a tipping point and it just flaked me out, but I was sort of, it did worry me, from that moment onwards. Then I didn't have any sugar in tea and coffee. I still have chocolate and cakes, but just didn't have the sugar in the tea and the coffee, so I did help myself a little bit, but did that have an effect on me getting dementia in later life? I don't know. All I can say is that the data suggests that yes, that did have a slight effect on me. So I'd probably give myself half a point for diabetes. And it's sometimes actually unofficially known, Alzheimer's disease is sometimes unofficially known as type 3 diabetes, or has been known in the past. Type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's.